Norfolk Island is a tiny speck in the vast Pacific Ocean. It lies between Noumea to the north, New Zealand to the south, and Australia to the west. More than 2.5 million years ago, Norfolk Island was formed from the lava ejected by an undersea volcano. Physically, the island is a high point in a huge change of mountains running from New Zealand to New Caledonia. Erosion of the island's coast by the surrounding sea has reduced the island to about 1/3 its original size and has formed the high cliffs that now make up much of its rugged coastline. Polynesians occupied Norfolk Island prior to the arrival of Europeans in 1788. Archaeological remains suggest a single phase of occupation in the period between 1150 and 1450 AD, with settlers probably arriving from East Polynesia. The island has a rich diversity of birds. Muttonbird historically refers to the Providence petrel harvested by early settlers. It is now extinct, while wedge-tailed shearwaters are still found there and are known locally as muttonbirds. On the 10th of October 1774, Captain James Cook sighted Norfolk Island, claiming it for the British Crown. HMS Supply arrived on Norfolk in March 1788 to begin a British colony, securing possession of the island and its resources. The island proved fertile and an agricultural settlement was set up using convict labour to support the larger settlement in Port Jackson. The main purpose was to provide food for Sydney: maize, wheat, potatoes, cabbage, timber, flax and fruit. The population peaked by more than 1100, but by 1814 the settlement was abandoned. The population was sent to New Norfolk, a new town in Van Diemen's Land. Norfolk Island's second settlement, 1825 to 1855, was the hell of the Pacific. It was a place to send the worst criminals, who were to be forever excluded from all hope of return, a place of extreme punishment short of death.
It became the standard design for a British prison into the 20th century, and we'll explain why once we get inside, okay?
Punishments were varied for petty crimes. Lashings were common, sometimes up to 500 strokes. Dumb cells were constructed to exclude light and sound. Men lost their sanity. A convict by the name of Michael Burns suffered a total of 2,210 lashes and almost 2 years in confinement, 3 months in total darkness. His crimes: insolence, suspected robbery, neglect of work, striking a fellow prisoner, bushranging and singing a song. There's the young and the dead here, isn't there?
Hi. Hi, how are you? Good, thank you. How are you? Very well.
One convict in a field gang raised his hoe and split the head of the convict in front of him, not through malice or revenge, but to be hanged, to be free of life worse than death. Why not suicide? Simply because most of the convicts were Catholics, a fact testified by the cemetery's headstones. Convicts were also forced into hard labour, building much of what today is one of the world's chief glories of Georgian architecture, Kingston, Norfolk Island. Emily Bay and the lagoon are favourite recreation areas with clear water and sheltered conditions. The islanders have always had a maritime outlook. The early Pitcairners relied on the sea for food and started whaling in the early days of the settlement. Although the island has two large piers, its shallow waters and exposed location has created an unusual way of landing heavy equipment, and this can only be done in calm conditions. The wreck of HMS Sirius on Norfolk Island, March 1790, was a disaster for the early settlement. The ship was driven onto a reef in Slaughter Bay while attempting to land supplies for the struggling colony. During the second settlement, convicts in leg irons were rowed out to the island to quarry the limestone. They were often forced to work in water, and many drowned. Stone was quarried from the Pitcairn Island, a rock close to shore, and coral rubble was rendered with lime and sand to make most walls, while Norfolk pine was used for joinery and roofs. Floors were made from thin stone slabs. During the late 1840s and early 1850s, a number of situations led to the abandonment of Norfolk Island. The cost of maintaining the penal settlement was growing, and more than 1,200 convicts were jailed on the island. In 1854, the second convict settlement on Norfolk Island was closed. Some convicts were sent to Port Arthur in Van Diemen's Land. Back in the British Parliament, Earl Grey saw Norfolk as a possible home for the inhabitants of Pitcairn Island, the descendants of the Mutiny of the Bounty and their Tahitian Polynesian wives. The people of Pitcairn Island voted to make the transfer. They sailed on the Maritime and landed at Kingston on 8th of June 1856. The Pitcairn Islanders first stayed in barracks, and by 1857 they were in possession of the Kingston buildings that were left vacant when the penal settlement ended. Around 1858, each household head was allocated a 50-acre lot away from Kingston. The northern coast of Norfolk Island was once the centre of the whaling industry, particularly for the Pitcairn Islanders. Cascade Bay, named because of the sheer cliffs where cascades of water run down after heavy rains, is where the main harbour facilities are located. Ships lie offshore and lighters ferry the cargo to the large crane, which allows heavy items to be hoisted ashore. Buses and cars are brought ashore here. After the Pitcairners arrived, they established both subsistence farming and a crucial whaling industry, which used oil for lamps and timber for treatment. The island was also a regular stop for American whalers, whose visits influenced the island's culture, including the celebration of Thanksgiving. A modern whaling station operated from 1956 to 1962, but its closure was forced by declining whale populations. This part of Norfolk Island is difficult to access, which is a pity because of its spectacular coastal scenery. Fortunately, the drone gives us a bird's eye view of the amazing geological features. One of the few access points is the road and track to Captain Cook's Lookout. Panoramic views along the coast can be seen from the lookout, which marks the spot where Captain Cook first came ashore in 1774. However, I took the opportunity to fly the drone along the coast to capture some close-ups of the geological volcanic structures known as stacks. Notice how shallow the water is around the islets, indicating that they were once part of the main island. The patterns of the rock are common to basaltic rocks, and in places are called columnar basalt, formed when the molten lava slowly cooled millions of years ago. Norfolk Island was much larger when it was extruded from the ocean floor millions of years ago. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it has been exposed to the incessant force of waves that have reduced the island to its present 8 kilometres by 5 kilometres. Remnants of the island have been left isolated by water, and the volcanic lava has been left as some unusual shapes, including cathedral and elephant rock. These islets offer refuge for many seabirds, including tropic birds, albatross, petrels, shearwaters, gannets and frigate birds. Hard Rock Track is the only other easy access point to view the northern coast. The Norfolk Island National Park includes roads and tracks to Mount Pitt and Mount Bates. Well worth a visit to get panoramic views of the whole island and the lush semi-tropical forests. During World War II, the island became a key air base and refuelling depot between Australia, New Zealand and the Solomon Islands. An airstrip was constructed by Australian, New Zealand and United States servicemen during 1942. The building of the airstrip brought a new way of life to the islanders. We will now visit the western side of Norfolk Island. Here we find the same rugged coastline, sheer cliffs dropping down to the sea. Only at Anson's Bay was there any easy access. If you look really carefully, you might just see some brave souls swimming in the surf. The T Shire Drive is family owned. The Shire horses are trained to pull a carriage that was imported from Poland, indicating just how resourceful the islanders have become. After the construction of the runway in 1942, Norfolk Islanders have embraced tourism as a major source of income. Although small in size and population, there are a diverse range of tours and activities. The Pitcairn settler story, from Bounty mutineers to proud Norfolk Islanders, is told during a tour of Charles and Kim Christian Bailey's remarkable 13-acre homestead. It's a beauty, isn't it?
She's gorgeous.
Tour the property by riding aboard the island's first ever tourist bus, a lovingly restored 1928 Model A truck.
No, they're going to come back that colour, but they've had a little bit of a look around. George built this structure at the same time as the house, so it dates from the late 1870s.
Tour the gracious 1877 homestead, preserved with original character, furnishings and charm. The established gardens are filled with fruit, vegetable trees and ornamental plantings, some of the oldest on the island.
Charles's son, because George has made it purposefully that high because he wanted the majority of that water to run off and not hasten any of the deterioration of the pine shingles. Cut it off at my eye and she looks a whole lot more Georgian. So, yes, please take a seat. These seats are very special because they date, rather heavy, but they date from about 1860. Some of the sheet music that belonged to Charlotte, one of the daughters. Now Charlotte was named after her grandmother, Charlotte. So when you go to the cyclorama and you see Emily at the front of the pier as a little girl holding and she lived in this house here for a number of years too. Charlotte never married, but she finished her years in the nursing home arm of the North Island Hospital And have you heard what happens on Norfolk when you turn 100?
Yeah.
You do get that telegram from the king.
Yes,
now.
yes.
But we also
The property was really a folk museum, showcasing the way of life of the early Pitcairners in the 1800s and early 1900s. Many items show how much relied on muscle power rather than machinery.
So what is it? How do you get it out of the ground? Like a yak?
pull it out.
Like a yak?
That's labour. No, it's like a ginger or a turmeric.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a tuber. All those shingles that have been made, 16,000 per there. You've also got the roof of the dairy. Older islanders on Norfolk can make shingles in their sleep through today. It was just a major form of connect to families, of course. But they're also absolutely bound together, the Pitcairners, by their devout Church of England faith. Absolutely. She's sounding not scratchy there. Oh, I think that needle might be getting a bit blunt, but you get the idea. It's just very evocative.
You visit George Bailey's blacksmith forge, the oldest working forge in the Pacific, still operating with the original double bellows.
I have seen it.
Here's the tea for Tom right there. That means beyond anything else, this is the cultural history of the cattle industry that's in this shed. The space this would have been, because this is like the original and the only Bunnings and garage of the day. You know, it would have been absolutely. And the fire engine, you should have seen when that came ashore. I mean, it's incredible. And it's
After the homestead, we saw aspects of Norfolk Island industries, including whaling, an original timber lighter and a whaleboat, both locally built.
So they declared them an occupational health and safety risk. They were decommissioned.
Really?
We're incredibly proud because this boat is not only built by John, but it's illustrative of this island's capacity to run its island affairs and survive here on this little river.
You can listen to the story in case I miss something.
So, not too unhappy about the rock. Well, they had pesky natives they had to fight off there, of course. None here.
No one seemed to know the story of how the banyan trees came to Norfolk Island, as they are not native to the area. However, they certainly appreciated the shade goon. Headstone Point on Norfolk Island is tied to a legend about an escaped convict named Barney Duffy and a curse he placed on his captors. The headstone at the site commemorates 2 British soldiers who drowned there in 1850. There are a number of walking tracks that give access to the western side of the island. And even on a calm day, the erosive powers of the Pacific Ocean were on display. Governor's Lodge sits on land that was once part of the original 50-acre grant made to James Daw, a flour miller, soon after the arrival of the Pitcairners in 1856. Charles Christian purchased the land from Daw. In 1980, the house was sold and the construction of Governor's Lodge commenced in 2001. An island bus tour takes you around the island to identify and locate some of the interesting sites, including the second settlement, Kingston, the 2 piers and scenic viewpoints.
The whole ground floor of that is a museum. This next one here, this is NMB, New Military Barracks. That's where the administrator has his office in there.
Well, the officers certainly had a good setup, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Got to keep the military happy.
Would have been tough times here.
Many of the stone floors in the old buildings were removed by the early Pitcairners for use in their buildings on their 50-acre plots. Restoration of the early convict buildings began in the 1960s and continues today. Well, I suppose all the wooden floors have gone. Kingston's World Heritage listing is for the Kingston and Arthur Vale Historic Area on Norfolk Island. It was added in 2010 as part of the Australian Convict Sites World Heritage Property. This designation recognised the site for its outstanding significance as a penal settlement from 1788 to 1855 and as one of Australia's most intact and important convict sites.
That will probably sort out over time, I imagine.
The late afternoon sun highlighted the rugged coastal scenery with deep shadows and glistening wavelets. The birds are enjoying the steady sea breezes. Returning to the spot where Captain Cook first came ashore in 1774, it must have been difficult to climb the steep cliffs, to cut down a Norfolk pine and gather some flax plants. It was decided that the homestead would be restored to serve as Bailey's restaurant. This charming restaurant has original pit-sawn ceilings and a veranda constructed from limestone removed from the old jail at Kingston. A nighttime visit to Kingston was enhanced by a crystal clear sky full of bright stars and the Milky Way. Then it was time for our last tourist experience, the famous Norfolk Island fish fry. Operating for over 40 years, is a feast of local dishes, salads, homemade coconut bread, mouth-watering fried fish that you won't forget. Your feast overlooks breathtaking coastal scenery as the sun sets on the western side property, Orndar Cliff.
I woke up, I was all alone, with a broken heart and a two-bed home. Well, I ask you, I know I'm gonna be the man who's gonna to you. If I grow up, oh, I know I'm gonna be the man who's gonna with you. What am I doing? I know I'm